Every farm that I know that I grew up with is gone. They don't exist anymore. All of the past, so more what I would call commercial agriculture and dairy has diminished, and a lot of this value-added small farming is moving in. So there's been a huge foodie movement as a result of all this. So small farms like Lively Run Goat Dairy and others that have been springing up are becoming the new agricultural trend here.
Small-scale dairy is really, really challenging financially. It's almost impossible to run a successful small farm. A big part of our mission is paying farms well for their milk and being able to provide farmers with a good living so that they're not just like scraping by in the way that the dairy industry has kind of forced them into in the last couple of years because the incredibly low price of milk right now, which is basically a symptom of this like massive consolidation of all of the different milk producers in the country, like vertically integrating. Like Walmart basically owns all their own milk supply. So they have these like 50,000 cow city farms in like Iowa. And they're like the biggest milk producer in the country. So we're trying to kind of get away from that. Like we want small scale farms run by families that get paid well for milk. The things I love about my job are interacting with farms and farmers, working to create like a better food system that is better for people and for the environment. Something that, you know, helps to connect customers to farms in a more intimate way and get away from the kind of like super industrialized, centralized food system that's developing in this country.
Our food supply in this country isn't as secure as people think. So how do we move from, you know, an economy that is addicted to cheap food, mass produced, because there might come a day when that other system fails us?
About half of all of the dairy that's produced in this country gets made into like bulk sizes for either institutions like colleges or schools or for restaurants. Plants that produce those products are basically tooled up to only produce bulk packaging. So what happened when COVID hit and all of the restaurant and institutions closed was literally like 50% of the dairy that was produced in this country didn't have anywhere to go. So pre-COVID, we were kind of split pretty evenly 50-50 between a lot of kind of high-end restaurants or distributors who work with high-end restaurants was about half of our total sales. In mid-March, they announced the closure of all like bars and restaurants, et cetera, and that immediately just, you know, knocked out 50% of our total sales.
One of our team members at that point basically said, well, hey, why don't we do a GoFundMe and try to salvage this milk?
So we started buying milk that was being dumped and making cheese and donating it to our local food pantries. So this is where we get milk that is coming into the cheese plant to be made into cheese. So that trailer right there is how we pick milk up.
We ended up settling on 2 farms that we helped. One is a local cow dairy down the road who their co-op said, you've got to throw away 15% of your milk.
So like the kind of flow is milk in here, gets pumped into the pasteurizer, gets pasteurized, and then depending on what type of cheese we're making, either goes into this vat right here or into the smaller vat in the other room. And then the cheese making process kind of begins.
GoFundMe was set up to essentially help us fund the purchase of milk that was on the market that was otherwise being dumped, as well as covering our production costs. So we needed to be able to keep our employees on, pay for the other ingredients and the lights and electricity and all that.
I believe we came up with the idea on like a Thursday. We set up the GoFundMe page and we were like, I don't know, let's put like 20 grand as our initial goal. And I think we hit that in like a day, just over 24 hours. So at that point we're like, okay, this thing has legs. So we upped it to 40,000 and we hit that in a week.
We had a great time when we were here last summer. And so, you know, it was kind of somewhat fresh in our memories. We really enjoyed it. So yeah, made us feel good to not only, help out Lively Run, bring attention to them, but then also help with the cause that they were, trying to assist with, and in taking a resource that would have otherwise been wasted during this time and revamping it, putting it into a new use that can still be useful during a time when everyone is in different positions and doing different things.
The goodwill that came out of the program surprised us. One of the things that touched me the most was we had to have some repair made on a small piece of equipment for the cheese room, and I took it to the local metal working shop that we use to do stuff like that. And when I went to pick it up, he just gave it to me, and I said, well, how much do I owe you? And he said, you don't owe me anything today. Thank you for what you're doing.
Every week, we make anywhere from like 100 to 500 pounds of cheese that gets donated to our local food banks and food pantries. So from goat milk, we're making chev, which is a fresh, soft cheese. The process for making that takes about 3 days as the turnaround time, basically from milk to packaged product. And on the cow side, we're making cheese curds, which are literally, ready for sale the day of. That morning we start with milk, and by the end of the day we have packaged product that's ready to go out.
Overnight, from being packaged in bulk, so I can take 5 pounds of cheese, put it in a bag, send it out to a distributor or a restaurant, and done. It went from doing that 80% of the time to every single piece be packed at a retail level into a 4-ounce packaging.
You're kind of tired and beat up from processing 1,000 pounds of cheese in a day, but after you packed it all up, and once that last screech of the tape gun was done, it was kind of like a breath, and you're like, we just did all of that. Like that. You see that giant pile? Like, we just did that. That feels good. That's gonna go where it's needed.
It's been really amazing. We've had a lot of volunteers who've helped out in various ways. A lot of kind of retired folks have been super gracious with their time, and just coming here literally in like their car and driving cheese down to Corning or over to Bath or whatever, car trips that take like an hour, hour and a half. That's been, pretty inspiring. So yeah, it's been a real community effort. It's been awesome.
And so the interesting thing about this project is it brought out the importance of rethinking our proximity to our food.
Being a small, relatively nimble business is incredibly helpful, in these kind of crazy times. We can kind of pivot our direction really quickly, and that is what enabled us to really get this food bank donation program rolling fast. I mean, it was literally like we had the idea on like a Tuesday, and by like the next week we were already donating cheese.
Like if everybody came together and was able to support everybody the way that it has happened on this farm and in this little community, I think we'd be in a much better spot.